guys, welcome back to the Kind of an Expert podcast, the only podcast where the guest picks the topic of every single episode. My name is Corey Tyndall, and as always, I'm your host. And this week I sat down with NYC comedian Nate Gibbons to talk about good television. Nate has a film degree and is currently writing a web series and has a lot of thoughts on what makes good TV, what doesn't make good TV, prestige TV, what actually is prestige TV. So if you're into television, you're going to love this episode. If you're not into television, get into television and then watch this episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. Follow him at NWG Comedy on Instagram and check out his web series called Hope Deferred on YouTube and Vimeo right now. And as always, follow me at Corey T Comedy on all social media. And if you're in New York City, come to Ope, a comedy show every single week at Ferns in the East Village. With that, let's get into the episode. There's a comic I know that's been fired from like 6 jobs because of his podcast, and he still does the podcast. Like he's like, I'm not giving up the podcast.
He's like, this isn't the problem. They're the problem.
Like, dude, oh man, how many possible views could you have?
Yeah.
Like it's not like he's got tens of thousands of viewers, and he's like, no, this is going somewhere. Like I don't know how many views he has.
It's like Corey does he like tries to hide that he work, like Yasko tries to hide that he does comedy.
Yeah.
He goes, someone always figures it out because he just try to get a headshot, and they're like, we didn't know. He goes, don't tell anybody.
Yeah, he's I guess I don't know. He's a bit of a weird case. We don't have to get into it, but it is funny. I don't know if you know Maddie Smith.
No,
you probably know. She kind of came up with me, but she's on MTV's Wild and Out now, and she also had like an office job. But she kept the job while she was on TV. And she worked at this big company. Nobody knew she worked there. Apparently, like one day, one of her coworkers came up to her and was like, are you on fucking MTV? She's like, what are you talking about? Just totally.
Pulls him in the supply closet, like, gotta sign an NDA. I'm not letting this get out.
Yeah. Oh, no. I've always told the companies because I'm like, they're gonna figure it out. And I feel like if I tell them up front, I don't tell them in the interview process, but as soon as they hire me, I'm like, yeah, I do comedy. Yeah. And then like they're like, oh, okay, and it doesn't feel like I'm hiding shit from them.
It's slowly getting out in my job, and people are like, well, how does that work? And I'm just like, I work 9 to 6, and then a couple nights a week I'll do an 8 or a 10:30, and then on the weekends are mine, so I just go off, and they're like, oh, cool.
It's not that hard.
I'm just waiting for like me to be coming up the stairs at Three Monkeys and it to be like someone I work with coming down, and they're like,
or like your whole work party.
Yeah.
They just rent the entire space. You're like, oh yeah, I'm doing the show.
Yeah. They're like, we're gonna come to a show. I'm like, good luck, because I never post where I am.
Yeah.
Unless you stumble across me.
I mean, it's possible.
I like work down near McDougal too, so I'm like right around the corner from there.
Yeah. So you got to get barking more. They'll see you. You'll run into people. It's kind of funny. They're like, what do you do? And they're so fascinated by it that it turns, you could turn it into a secret between you and that person. You're like, all right, just, don't tell a bunch of people all that.
Yeah.
They'll be all right. We're not talking about that. We're talking about TV.
Yes.
Which, I don't know. Are you caught up on Silo? Have you watched that?
No.
On Apple?
No, I'm really deep. I just finished Yellow Jackets. That's the thing I just did.
I watched the first season.
Okay.
Second season, good? Worth watching?
I like prestige TV, but I'm also like kind of really lowbrow. Where like I was in film school and they'd like show a movie and I was like, that was good, and then everyone would just spend the next 40 minutes ripping it. So I watched season 2 of Yellow Jackets. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. I'm excited. There's gonna be season 3. I was like, oh, that was good. Like I'll tune back in. And my girlfriend brought up a good point. She's like, they just introduced a bunch of new stuff without answering any questions from season 1. I was like, yeah, but also if they have 5 seasons to wrap it all up, like you got to keep adding stuff in.
But. Yeah, that show, even the first season, I mean, the hook at the beginning of the first episode, which like I won't really spoil it for anyone because it happens in the first like 10 seconds, is you figure out like these girls are cannibals in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, the opening scene.
Yeah, and you're like, oh shit, this is going to be great. Like you're following these kids around. But then they like took this weird turn where they just turned it. I've kind of... There are so many shows where it starts off with a really original premise and then it just turns into a detective show.
Right.
That's it. And that's what I was going to say about Silo is it's the new like Apple Prestige TV, like very high budget, all this other, and the premise is that 10,000 people live underground in this silo, and apparently Earth's been annihilated outside, and there's it's poisonous to go out there, but people are starting to figure out that it might not actually be, and so it's very like political, and it could be really sociological. And I was like, oh shit, that sounds exactly like my type of show. And then I'm on episode 8, and it just turns into a regular like detective show. It's like, I wonder who's killing people, and it's like, god damn it, guys, like, can we keep the Prestige TV like an actual prestige concept, like something I haven't seen before?
I'm a massive fan of like the opening scene being a real, like, I think similar to like Breaking Bad's opening scene of him driving through the desert in the RV, but like at least they get to that pretty quick. Like we still haven't seen where we are at in Yellow Jackets is not where the first scene took us.
Oh man,
yeah,
really?
We're still not there at the end of season 2.
Christ. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the first season was all right.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, they're cannibals, but it's like season or episode 4 or 5. I'm like, when are we gonna start eating people?
Right.
This is what I tuned in for.
Well, so that kind of brings me to my first question that I want your opinion of is like, what is Prestige TV? Is Prestige TV just high budget on a show kind of like Showtime or on a channel like Showtime or HBO, or does it have to meet this threshold of critical acclaim where people think it's really good at the same time that it's high budget and has big producers and, you know, et cetera, tens of millions of dollars?
I think having a big budget helps you get to prestige, but I do think, for me, I'm always drawn more towards the character. Like if the characters are good and they have depth, I'm more in tune than if like the story has depth. I'd say the only thing that goes against that, like I probably binged Game of Thrones like in like early pandemic. I held off, waited for it to end, and then I just binged it all.
Yeah.
And like some of those episodes that I know have massive, like Battle of the Bastards, Red Wedding, stuff like that, like with the massive budgets, I'm like, those are some of the greatest episodes of TV ever. Or like Stranger Things, I think they do like 1.5 million an episode, dollar wise, and those are really good. But
I think that's a perfect example. Would you consider Stranger Things to be prestige TV?
It's cusp for me. It's,
okay.
Just because I'm seasons 1 and the last season I really liked a lot, but like season 2, it got a little like campy a little bit for me. I know, like I love. It's a 9.9.
You mean him playing guitar to chase off the demons wasn't campy enough for you? Jesus Christ!
I mean, like season 1, Steve Harrington with the bat. Like, yes, give me that. Season 4, Eddie Munson, give me that. Like, I like like that, but
you just like hot guys, is what you're saying.
Kinda, like When Billy went out, my heart broke a little bit. But. Like, I mean, the budgets are so big. I think it's going to get released in 2027. Like,
well, the writer's strike isn't helping.
That's not helping
that
anything.
Which, I mean, it is. I'm pro writer's strike.
Same. I will take it. Give it to me in 2030 if the guys are getting paid. The writers are getting paid appropriately. Right. So,
but I'm still trying to like figure this out. So it's right on the cusp. But like, what would make it prestige TV? Like, less children in it?
I'm not a huge fan of like the supernatural mystery. That's just I like it based in real life. Like give me The Wire, give me Soprano, like give me real people handling real problems. Like it's great that we have kids fighting the upside down and wormholes to Russia and everything like that. Like I love it. Like keep blowing that world out of proportion, but I'm like, how big do you need to get? Like Like, I like that they're like, all right, we'll make it back about characters. We'll make Will potentially gay. Like, that's what I'm like, all right. They're like, for the people who want character development, there you go.
Yeah, right.
You know?
If you're ever building a show, just make someone gay and everyone will be like, yes.
All right.
Yes, that is a hero. So the shows that you named, I don't think anyone would argue that those aren't prestige TV. Where you got The Sopranos, you got...
I'd fight them if they did argue it.
Yeah, The Wire. You've got... I think Succession is like the newest sort of...
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely prestige TV.
Yeah.
Does it have to be a show where not many people watch it? Because like not many people watch The Wire, and not a lot of people watch The Sopranos.
Yeah.
But they both had these outsized influences on culture. Like The Wire changed cop shows.
Yep.
Sopranos, I don't know.
Sopranos changed TV. They were like the first series to be Tony Soprano's the first anti-hero ever, pretty much.
Yes. Okay.
And the fact that they didn't make him the stereotypical mobster, like they gave him in panic attacks. So it's like, okay, like he's not handling mob problems. He's literally handling family problems.
Yeah. And you feel bad for him.
Yeah, I think The Sopranos is one of the best family dramas if he was in waste management, you know?
Yeah. It was a borderline comedy for the first couple of seasons.
There's a lot of funny, and then it gets dark and everyone devolves. Apparently, off the list, you just have to be on HBO. Like,
sure. I was gonna say, so a show like The Last of Us, very big budget, very well written, not really huge stars. I mean, Pedro Pascal kind of was, but not really. Like he was the Mandalorian, but you never saw his face. Yeah. So it's, he kind of became from The Last of Us, but it's a wide appeal zombie show.
Yeah. My girlfriend's in love with Pedro Pascal.
Sure.
She's like going through all of, I've lost complete control of that. She's like, I would leave you in a second.
You get Annie Bunsen and she gets Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
And you're both happy.
She's like watching Narcos without the subtitles. And she's like, I don't need the plot really.
Oh, my favorite fact about that Narcos show is that the Spanish they use is Mexican Spanish and not Colombian Spanish.
Nice.
So the Colombians can't actually understand. They need the subtitles. It's the Mexicans who actually understand what they're doing. It's so funny.
Have any of those shows that we just named, they never had, like, the people became stars afterwards, or they really didn't do much afterwards. I bet Pedro's on a trajectory, and Bella Ramsey, I think that's their name, is on a trajectory. But like, I think The Last of Us is unique. It's like the first show to do off a video game like successfully, maybe. I think my favorite, I was talking to you about it at one of the shows when it first came, because you told me to watch it. I was like, all right, I'm terrified of zombie movies. Like, I couldn't get through the pilot of The Walking Dead. Like, I was like, this is too much for me.
That was pretty into it. He's like got the horse and he's like walking through. He's covered in dead shit.
It's the little girl turned around. Like, I know when she turns around, she's not going to be normal. But
The Last of Us had a couple of moments like that where you see the old lady just like her eyes go black in the blur in the background.
But I feel like the pilot especially totally was filmed as if you were like POV video game. Like, especially when they're like back of the truck, the dialogue that Tommy and Joel are using is like totally what you'd hear from just NPCs in a video game, just laying out the plot for you. And I bet that was like, so well done,
I agree. So let's break that show down into like, so we could do Stranger Things as well.
Okay.
Prestige TV. Mm-hmm. The writing for Stranger Things. Okay. Like the dialogue. Not Prestige TV.
No.
The budget is Prestige
Totally.
TV.
Absolutely.
Critical acclaim, not Prestige TV.
It hasn't won anything?
I think it...
Maybe not like Golden Globes or anything. I think it's getting,
I don't know if I count Golden Globes and Oscars and stuff. Okay. Just because I really hate those things.
That's fair.
Because they're all purchased.
Yeah.
Like that's the big issue is I'm talking like, Succession's probably going to win a bunch of Emmys just because HBO is going to really push for it. But like The Bear didn't win anything.
Right.
And we'll get to that later because it's not on HBO. Right. But it's like... Last of Us, the dialogue's really fucking good.
Really good.
But it's taken from a video game.
Right.
So can we say it's Prestige TV or is it an adaptation, which should never be Prestige TV, right?
Right.
Like, you want Prestige TV to be an original thing. You got The Sopranos, you got 6 Feet Under, you got The Wire, you've got Succession, you've like this original artsy White Lotus sort of like, this is weird and only 12 people are watching it, but these 12 people think it's the best thing ever. Like, that's what I think of.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Fight me on this. Where do you put it?
I'm trying to I'm racking my head. I'm trying to come up with like a series or movie that's based off a book, so I could throw that in your face. Because
The Martian was very good. That's based off a book.
I think the series The 100 is based off a book, but I mean that's not prestige. It's another dystopian.
Yeah,
I've watched it in about a week. It's 7 seasons. I was like, I'll just hum through this.
God
you know?
Damn. Do you actually work, or do you just watch TV?
It's just on in the background, like.
I know other people that do
I'll
that.
tune in when someone starts yelling, you know. But
that's how
I'm
I
trying
watch,
to fight.
Sports.
I don't think I can fight you on it. I think I can maybe just give absolute credit for like character adaptation on the actor's part. And I mean season 2, right? Because the end of season 1 is the end of the video game. So season 2 is going to be entirely still based off the world and characters created in a video game, but it's going to be entirely new.
Well, there's a second video game.
Oh, come on.
So it is based off the second video game. And even like the episode where they're in the mall is based off the DLC of the video game. So they haven't broken too far from that. But it's just in this weird middle ground.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, so you were saying you went to film school.
Right.
What do you look for in a show for you to, like, not for you to say, like, oh, yeah, it was pretty good, but, like, what do you look for? What did they teach you to look for in when you're watching to go, like, that is very well done? That is what we should be striving for when we are making television or movies.
Yeah. Listen, I could write a really good first act and a really good third act, but every professor I had was like the 60 pages in the middle. What the fuck are we doing?
Jesus.
But for TV, I always look for, because they pretty much taught us how to write to get jobs. It was like, write a pilot that has a hook. Like,
sure.
Because you're only going to submit a pilot. No one's going to want you to put down a whole thesis 4 seasons flushed out because they're going to want to change things.
Yep.
But it was like character. Got to have a really good character, have a good cast, develop a conflict, obviously. There were like some kids, there was some dude, I'm like, dude, you need to be writing novels. He would show up every semester with a new idea where he literally just built a world, like usually in outer space. And like we would have writing partners, and whoever got paired with him was like, I can't give notes because like I don't know what this creature is, like help me out here, man. Like you got to give illustrations or something.
Right.
Like I think they were like first act should be about 30 pages. He would show up with like 55 because of description, and it's like,
oh god,
yeah,
oh my god. Well,
but for me, like I always really tried to focus. I had an issue of just making every main character kind of like myself. Because I'm like, they're gonna have the most lines. They should think exactly like me,
Shocking you went into stand up where everything's about you.
Yeah. But I would always just try to think of like what is going to be the overarching challenge and what will be like the mini obstacles. Like I'm doing it wrong. Like I'm thinking of like shows. I'm like, oh, this is a really good scene for season 4 when everything else has happened that I haven't thought of yet.
Right.
But like when we had like 8 weeks to come up with an idea, it was build the world first pretty much. And then it's like build your hero, build your villain. Your villain doesn't even need to be a person. Like Silo, it's like can be the environment. The 100, it can be the environment. Last of Us, it's a virus. And then kind of from there, lost my train of thought because I was just thinking about how terrifying The Last of Us. I'm sorry. They scared the hell out of me.
You need it.
Yeah.
Your life is too easy in New York City.
Yeah. Oh. That's the other thing that terrifies me is that like whenever there's an apocalypse show, they're like first place it hit, major cities. I'm like, amazing.
Of course. All right. So you're looking at character, which I think is fair.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm really struggling with this because I love prestige TV, and it's one of those things I could tell you when I saw it and be, oh yeah, that's prestige TV.
Yeah.
White Lotus. There was, or like on Hulu. Oh shit, what was that show? It was like the Nine Perfect Strangers. Mm-hmm. Did you watch that?
No.
Okay.
Listen, Hulu has ads. I can't. I need uninterrupted.
You pay $2 more a month and you don't get the ads.
I don't want to talk about it. That's a subway ride,
Yeah, one subway ride. Just walk a little. Okay. So you're looking at the characters when you're writing your screen. Are you how much do you care about environment? How much do you think that plays into what is it? Because you've got like your network TV shows, which are just like, standard. We're in East New York for this cop show, or we're in CSI Miami or CSI fucking Hawaii or whatever. Like, I feel like if you're gonna do that, you're kind of out, right? In terms of setting.
Yeah. I try to never make stories like super setting based. Like,
okay.
I just think it creates more problems than it like opens your world up to. If you're, because like, especially if you do like a period piece, you're gonna need to be pretty fucking knowledgeable about the era. Like, I could never write. Like, I remember I showed up one time. They're like, come with 3 ideas, and I was like, I want to write a show about like a corrupt politician. Like the pilot, he's gonna be like a Florida senator, controversial pro-life, pro-choice state.
Sure.
First episode, he's paying for someone's abortion, kind of.
Okay.
But it's like, it's a whole story that he's not actually, And then they're like, do you know anything about politics or their schedule? I'm like, no, I don't. And they're like, you should probably not go with this idea then. Like, all right. Yeah. Like, I could never in a million years, like, I know it's not based off history, but like Game of Thrones could never do something like that. Like, I'm more like, I'm going to give you an unreliable narrator or an anti-hero. I'm going to plunk them in, Springfield, USA, and the world is going to come to them, and they're going to go to the world, more so. Because I just think it's like, it limits you way less. You don't get snagged up on things,
Sure. There's not, nobody's going to sit there.
Which is not prestige TV. I'm not writing prestige TV.
Sure.
I can't do it. But.
Right. No, I think very few people can, which is why it's so good. But and I know a lot of people hate prestige TV, and to that I'm like, you don't like TV. You like having something on in the background.
Right.
That's which, like, if you want to watch The Office for the 10th time, go for it. I don't give a fuck. But like, you're not watching TV at that point. You're be like, or rewatching anything.
Right.
But again, I told you at the beginning, I'm a snob about this stuff.
My parents are both real like snobs about that too. Like, I remember the first time I saw The Sopranos, I was like 8.
Wow.
Yeah,
you're like, I'm moving to New York.
They let me watch the first like 4 episodes, and then my mom's like, "There's too many scenes at the Bing. Like, we gotta get this kid out of here."
That's why you're a huge titty feed now. After
like,
every show, you're hitting up the flash dancers.
Oh god, yeah. She was like, "There's good character here, but we can't." It wasn't. That's the fight. Is like, it wasn't the murders or the like nefarious mobsters. It was just that where they operated. They're like, absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, you actually reminded me of something, because my parents did that with Lost when that came out.
Same.
I watched the first 6 episodes, and then it fell off. And I would argue the first season was kind of prestige TV, and then it just dropped off. What happened?
Amazing. Yes, I'm so glad we're talking about this, because this is what I'm talking about when you make the world too big. They opened up the world to too many things.
Big.
Yes, I thought so. Despite the fact they're on an island, there's like they're the others, and then there's this David guy, dude in the white robe, dude in the black robe. I was young when I saw it.
I never actually watched it. They told, and then I just never went back to it.
But it's like, it's regarded as like one of the best first seasons and one of the worst finales of all time, because they just don't answer anything. It's like it was left on, and it wasn't like they got canceled. Like, they wrapped the show up, but I'm like, you made it too big. You opened up too many questions, and you didn't really have an answer for.
Okay.
And that's how you left it.
So, resolution, is that part of what makes a good show?
If you can't see where it ends when you start it, I think you got to figure that out.
Okay.
Like, every project I've co-opted in my head, or every project I'm working on with friends, like we're working on like a web series, and we cast everyone, and we shot the pilot first couple episodes, like the first season's done, and we're like, we know, first of all, we're just hoping it gets picked up, but like, if we just fund this ourselves for 4 seasons, we know who ends up with who. People come and go, people date, people do 4 or 5 episodes here and there, but like, we know where these people end up. Granted, hopefully all actors stay on. That's a whole nother debate, but I think knowing where you're going, like, don't pose a question that you don't have an answer to. Is like, please give me an answer, Doesn't that conflict with what you said in your class, where they were like, just figure out how to write the pilot, don't
don't write the whole thing because it's going to get changed.
And then it goes to Hollywood, it gets bought, and then 12 people are like, this is what direction we should go. It's why I feel like it would go, right?
So you almost kind of have to
compromise,
write the whole thing without writing the whole thing.
Yeah. Like,
okay.
There's so many cool examples I know of, like stuff like Jesse Pinkman was supposed to die in the pilot. I'm like, and he's literally the hero at the end of the show, if you ask me. Same show, Hank was supposed to die first season. Is like, again, such a great storyline. So like, I think one of the weirdest things, so with writing this web series, it's so different from comedy. I found, like, one of the big things is like when you write something and then it's filmed and then you watch it, like that's the first time it's getting received. So if you write a joke that you think's funny and then it doesn't go that well, and then you're like, oh God, I did that. Oh no. Like with comedy, like, go up on an 8:30 and it doesn't work. Make a tweak at 10:30, it goes better. And then it's like, do it for 3 weeks and you have like something fleshed out. But
yeah,
I'm like, wow, we should redo that. And they're like, well, we're done filming. So this is the final product.
Comedies are fucking hard. And I think there's a reason. There's a scream outside my window. Are we protesting again?
I don't know.
Is that what's going on? I don't know. It's probably a parade.
Or filming something.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah, East New York keeps waking me up.
Great.
Speaking
That's
of,
amazing.
Yeah, 6 a.m. I'm like, what are you guys doing? East New York.
Yeah.
That was here. It happened here twice, which, like, makes sense. I live in the East Village. Sure, whatever. There's historic shit around here. I spent the night in Brooklyn. I wake up at 6 a.m. as a film crew. I walk out at 8 a.m. I was like, what are you guys doing? They're like, East New York. I was like, guys, are you following me? Like, how the hell?
How many cop shows do we need based in this city?
Right. Oh my God.
I saw Ghostbusters filming the other day, and I was like, like, man, I wish I didn't do my day job, and I wish I was on set. And then I remember, like, when I was a production assistant, and I'm like, no, I don't. No. I don't wish I was on set.
That sounds awful.
Yeah.
I totally lost my train of thought. We were talking about Jesse Pinkman ended up being the hero.
Right. Like, just changes people make, like, how quickly a series can change based off the dynamic people have.
Yeah, that's a good point with the actors. Oh, we were talking about comedies. Right. I think there's a reason there are not many prestige TV comedy shows.
Right.
I think they're fucking hard to do.
Yeah. Can you think of, like, any?
I mean, you could argue, like, Insecure or, like, High Maintenance.
I will throw my hat in the ring saying I Think You Should Leave is some of the best comedy on TV. It's so divisive. It's so divisive.
Yes.
My girlfriend hates it, but she, like, watches clips. She's like, this guy's funny. I'm like, I showed you the show and you hated it. Like,
it is a lot. If anyone hasn't seen I Think You Should Leave, it's 6 episodes. Each one is 15 minutes. And that's
like
all you can handle.
Skits. Yeah.
There's no, like, you don't want each one to be 30 minutes because they're too crazy. I am in the super minority on that one, where I thought it was brilliant for the first season and then it just got old.
Okay.
It hasn't changed at all. And not saying there's not a couple of sketches that I think is good.
Hilarious.
But like the sketch where he pays for the person behind him to start
and he tries to
start a chain
around.
And then he goes around again to the drive-thru to order a bunch of shit. Yep. Brilliant. So fucking funny. Very quotable. It's got its moments. But, like, I'm talking about shows where critics are like, hands down, that was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
This was, like, you could do it with a movie. Like Bridesmaids was that movie.
So good.
So good. What is the Bridesmaids of TV?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the only comedies I've seen get, like, a bunch of... I think it's hard because the way the award shows are broken out is there's, like, dramas and then there's everything else that they say is a comedy, right? I think those are the two categories. So it's like... So comedies, which are considered, like, less plot-driven, are getting knocked out by stuff that just comes up that's more plot-driven, that gets more critical acclaim naturally. I feel like one of the ones that won a bunch of Emmys and Golden Globes was... How am I blanking on the name? It was Schitt's Creek.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was...
But didn't that take like 6 or 7 seasons?
It literally got to its season's finale for it to be like hit mainstream everything.
Okay.
They're like final season is coming out. So everyone's like, and I think everyone in their like late 20s is like, cool, now I can binge it. Binge it up to this final season and then I'll watch the final season.
Well, that was the thing. It was on Netflix and then the pandemic happened. So everyone was like, oh, this Schitt's Creek show. I've heard about that.
He got the Tiger King treatment. Is that what happened?
Yeah, pretty much. I guess Arrested Development is the only one I
Yeah.
could think of where, like, at the time, critics were like, "This is fucking awesome. This show is so good,"
And it is.
and nobody watched it.
Right. It got canceled.
After what, 2 seasons?
Something like that. All I
And-
know is Michael Cera came back looking a lot older.
Oh yeah. I mean, the new season they did was bad. But
Yeah.
like, is that as close as we got to prestige TV comedy?
Maybe.
Atlanta, maybe? Did you watch Atlanta?
No, I watched about Hulu, man. I can't do Hulu. It's too hard for me. I got through like a season.
I'm gonna give you $20.
Here's
to
the thing:
fucking
is
watch.
Hulu does this really
Upgrade your
annoying
Hulu.
thing where they have their ads at twice the volume as their regular TV.
Yep.
So if I'm watching it in bed, I'm just like, oh, like every time we cut to commercial, I'm like, this
They're
is
very
jolting.
repetitive too.
Yeah. Oh,
the
yeah.
ads. It's just, the thing that gets me is the same ad over and over and over again.
I think the thing. So I sell commercials in my day job,
Okay.
and I don't like a lot of the clients I work for.
No.
I don't work for them anymore. They've switched firms. Thank Lord.
Oh, nice.
And I remember one time I was watching Hulu and I paused it and an ad that I work for showed up and I just turned the TV off. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore.
Your work is chasing you.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Oh man. Okay. So I want to know more about what you learned in film school. Like as it comes to writing and the web series. Like where did you start with that?
So I went in to college undecided. They called it exploratory.
Sure.
It was the exploratory program.
Yeah.
It was a nice name they put on it.
Not a moron, but
Yeah,
kind of
they're
stupid
like,
at
they're like,
the
you
same
did good
time.
on the SATs. We'll let you figure it out for
Yeah,
you.
right. Are you gonna give us money? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Get in here.
Yeah. They're like, this kid did
You'll figure it out.
This kid did a lot of community service. All
my
right.
God.
So after a semester, I was like looking at like the buffet of majors, and I was like, I can watch movies and get a degree in
There
it.
you go.
And I was like, I love TV. I'd love to write TV. And so I signed up. And then like the first, like I didn't even know how to structure a script. I was
Okay.
like, I didn't know how, like there's software for it.
I
Obviously.
still don't.
Yeah,
So-
it's very confusing. So I spent like pretty much the first year just figuring that out. And
Okay.
then they do like classes where it's like, this is how to make money. This is the industry. This is who talks to who to
how
get
to
things.
make money.
Literally.
You don't.
My like, yeah, but the guy, he's the dean now, was like, he had us look up the net worth of like 4 people. He's like, look up Will Smith, George Clooney, Leo, and then like Scarlett Johansson.
Okay.
And they're like, that's a lot of money, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, their agent, he's like, they all have the same agent, and
Yeah.
he makes 20%, and he just shows up for a meeting. He's like, so if you want to make money, be an agent. He's like, kind of what he said.
You got to be a good agent to make
Yeah,
money.
yes.
Let's be
Absolutely.
clear. There's a
Yes.
lot of agents out there that have people making no
No
money,
money.
and they're not making any
Yeah.
money either. So
But like from that standpoint, I spent a lot of time watching silent movies that I felt was kind of pointless. I was like,
okay.
They're like, all right, like we were watching like D.W. Griffith films, and he like fully like, I'm like, all right, this dude was around in like the 1800s, and like I'm not sure what he can teach me. Like he supported the KKK, and he was like the first guy to make films. Like I don't really know. His first Birth of a Nation is like a crime. It's like
that
a
was
hate
him.
crime.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a hate crime.
I see. Yeah, those old movies.
Yeah,
are
it's a 14-week
tough.
semester. It took me like 8 of those weeks to see anything in color. Like I'm like, all right, can we please speed it up?
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, I think I learned more from 3 professors who were all writing professors, and more from my classmates than I did from like everyone else in the film school. Just because my classmates are like, they kind of know what's going on. Like I think that I liked their feedback almost more than my professors a lot of the time, because I'm like, yeah, because you've lived as long as me. You know it's probably gonna be popular in 10 years. I'll listen to you. Like I get that. Like my 3 professors they all wrote movies that have been made, TV shows. Like one of them worked on like Felicity for a long time. Another one worked on X-Files
Sure.
with
Bryan Cranston.
no,
it's
the guy who
did
made
Breaking
it.
Bad.
Oh God, Vince Gilligan.
yeah.
Gilligan. So for forever. So I'm like, yeah, I obviously I value your feedback, but
Right.
also hearing from like Timmy next to me, like I'll take his word into account.
Yeah.
I also just learned that like the film school I went to was like probably top 25 in the country. They say top 10. I'll give it top 25.
Sure.
And I was perfectly middle of the road. So it's like, Yeah, there's going to be people who write better stuff for sure.
Yeah.
And there were some people there were like 10 projects that blew everything out of the water for like compared to everyone else. And a big thing I learned is like stuff gets made. Like it is so hard to just be no one and then be someone. Like a girl while I was there made a short film, like a 15-minute thing. And then she wrote a full-length script. She was packaging it both. And she put it out on like Vimeo. And then 3 years later, PG-13, starring Rebel Wilson, I think that's the movie, came out, and it was copied.
Oh.
And she's like, what can I do? Like, what can I do?
Nothing.
And the dean was like, nothing.
Yeah.
Like, you can go to court, but they have millions of dollars to just waste, and they're just going to bury you.
Right.
So you can put on your resume that, like, hey, you actually wrote this movie. You're not credited, but, like,
oof.
And it's like, god damn.
Yeah.
Like, Zootopia, totally stolen. They fought it. And
really?
It's like, yeah, and the horrible thing is, like, that person who wrote Zootopia pitched it. And the person they pitched it to just didn't say that it got pitched. And they're like, this is my idea. And they bring it up to Disney. Disney makes it. Disney makes $250 million on it because it's a very popular kids movie. That person goes to court and they can just use the money they made off their idea to just swamp them in lawyers. And it's like horrific. So I was like, I'm not sure I want to do this. You know?
Yeah. There's so that happens in commercials, like commercial acting. So a lot of times there's a lot of stand-up for people that don't know. There's a lot of stand-up comics that do commercials because it's very generally you've got a very specific look and it's you know what to do. You're generally okay and it doesn't conflict with your schedule.
Right.
Like if you're filming during the day, you could still do stand-up at night. What'll happen a lot is a comic will go into the commercial auditions and they'll just be like, oh, you're a comic? Oh yeah, just, feel free to improv. We're still working on the commercial script, like all this other. And
I know where this is going.
The comic will say, it'll like be making jokes and like doing this and riffing and all that other stuff, and they'll kill in the room and they'll be like, I got this job for sure. And then they don't hear the callback, but then they'll see the ad and it's like, that was my riff. Yeah. So they'll take the riff from the audition, and just give it to an actor person.
It's horrific.
Who is more attractive.
Right.
And it's not the same with stand-up, and it's kind of good that we can put video out
right
now, because then it's like, no, that person's, but like, who's policing it? I could put out a video. Someone, Tom Segura could take my shit. I'm not going to be able to sue Tom Segura.
No. And someone was telling me, he's been in the game for like 20, like Brian Grossi. Do you know him?
Yeah.
And he was saying how like back in the day, like you would just hear like, hey, someone in Albuquerque's doing your stuff. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay, great. Like awesome.
Well, that was, there was a French stand-up comic who would come back to the States and he would hear George Carlin's set and then he'd translate it in French and then go back to France and just do his stuff. And he made so many thousands of dollars, and it took like one person being like, hey, no, that's George Carlin's stuff. Like, I know that, but it took so long. He made so much money. He was disgraced or whatever, but he was a disgraced multi-millionaire because he was selling out theaters and stuff. Totally stealing. The point of this is that we need to start stealing.
Right.
This is, what are we doing trying to create original content?
I think
it's a losing game.
I think one of my favorite things is like when you get off stage and like a comedian's like, hey, like I have something close. I'm like, okay, I'm like, okay, my bad. Can you do it just so I know like what not to touch on? And then they'll do it. I'm like, listen, buddy, you don't own divorce. Like, it's like other people, statistically, 50% of us out here telling jokes have been through it. So
my comedy's a little different for me because if you take a different angle, like I found out my prehistoric planet bit was Renan Hirschberg also has, it's almost identical. And it was one of those like he didn't see me do it, I saw him do it, and then I went up and talked. I was like, I pretty much have the same bit, and he was like, oh, that's the first time I've done that, I'll keep it. Oh, cool. So we were cool with it. Most people are not that cool with it.
No,
he just kind of threw it off the cuff.
Right.
So that'll happen. But then also like I know 2 other people that are doing bits about their parents smoking weed, which I've been doing for 2 years. And it's like, I don't have a monopoly on kids being weird about their parents smoking weed. As long as the punchlines are different, it's like, all right, whatever.
I'm like pretty knowledgeable to the point where like if I know someone on the show has like an A joke that kills on a certain topic and I have one that's like B and I'm pretty mediocre, I'm like, I won't do that one because I know they're gonna do it. Like, it'll be better.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's get back into film school. Okay.
Cool.
So you're not very good at it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking to a real middle of the pack film student.
You know, that's who makes it sometimes.
Right.
You're the Nikola Jokic.
Yes, exactly.
Of film writing.
If someone took me in the second round, you'd be pleasantly surprised. You know.
But it is like you were telling me how you got this short film made. You were like, oh, yeah, I just ran into a buddy on the street. And he was like, hey, we're working on this. Do you want to help?
Yeah, I honestly think the biggest thing in film school, other than learning how to format a script and how to structure a TV show or movie, is networking. Because I'm from a town where I was the only one who wanted to do anything like this.
Sure.
And it's like, okay,
and
now
you didn't even know you wanted to do anything.
And
like
now
that.
I'm in a room of 25 people who want to do this. So it's like, to me, that's it. And it's so like, you know, comedy is almost to say it's who you know.
Oh yeah,
if you're like,
I'm sleeping my way to the top.
Yeah.
This is. I'm fully aware.
Right.
This is.
Yeah, I gotta like slowly. Yeah, I gotta make some friends. You know, with some similar interests. But yeah, it's how many times are you gonna like throw your friend something if they're within an arm's reach of someone who might be better who you don't know? It's like every time.
Yeah,
every time.
It's true. It's true. So when you're like writing your first act, second act, third act, you were saying the second act is where you struggled.
Yeah.
What is the tricky part about the second act? Because that is when I watch a TV show, whether unless it's like a 6-episode miniseries, and I love a miniseries because it doesn't have that bloated middle.
Right.
But like a show like Beef, did you watch that?
No.
Okay. It just came out, the A24.
I'd probably like it then.
It was 2 to 3 episodes too long.
Okay.
It was like Netflix was like, no, this needs to be 10 episodes. And so they just dragged it out.
Okay.
But it's that second act that they drag out. Right. They never drag out the end and they never drag out the beginning. Why is it so hard to write a second act that doesn't feel long?
Okay. For movies, I think the issue for me is it's twice as long. It's as long as the first and third acts.
Okay.
So I'm always like, got a lot of pages to get through. Yeah. Like I said, you always should know how the story ends when you start it. I just didn't know how I was going to get from beginning to end a lot of the time. Okay. I've since tried to write some movies and I'm on page like 54 and I'm like, where are we headed? For TV.
Well, you know where you're headed. You just don't know how you're getting there.
For TV, I totally agree that like a concise second act is amazing. Like a big issue I had with like Yellow Jacket season 2 is the same thing. I feel like in season 1, like for the last 20 minutes every episode, you're like, oh, this is the end of the episode. Because it's like so many good I'm like, all right, well, this is clearly where they're going to leave it off. And then there's like so much just kind of fluff in the second. And it's like,
Interesting.
I'm not really sure. I think it's like, it could come down to the fact that like Netflix or studios are like, you need to make this longer because we're trying to make a little bit of money, you know?
Well, is Yellow Jackets, are those episodes an hour each?
Yeah.
I really like what a lot of these studios are doing now, where they're like, make the episode as long as you need it to be.
Yep.
Like with Silo, there's some that are 58 minutes. There's some that are 45. There's some that are like 35.
I think,
like, great. I'm glad you end it.
I think streaming will help prestige TV so much because it's no longer. It's no longer a structure. You don't need to build in 3 ad breaks. Pretty much, you can just kind of write how you want to write. You get the subscription money, you get the ad money in it. They'll put them randomly, and you just kind of move on from there. I think that really is changing the game.
Yeah. It is funny you work in advertising while you're like, no, streaming, it's better because it's no ads.
We air in streaming too. We got Hulu, we got Amazon Prime, everything. But yeah.
So the second act is really just, it's like it's a length thing. It's there's too much time to fill. I'm trying to think of something that has like a great second act. And I feel like the ones that have a very good second act are the ones where the end of the second act feels like the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And then the third act is another twist on top of that.
I think movies wise, there's some really good
in TV.
Yes, second acts and stuff like I think Goodfellas has a really, really good second act.
Okay.
Because like I feel like end of second act, beginning of third act. Have you seen Goodfellas? Mm-mm. It's like a Henry Hill in the helicopter. He's like the main character.
Okay.
He's like mob related. And the guy's like, never do drugs. Like that's how everyone's going down. You know, people aren't gonna do 3 to 5 for racketeering when like if they get popped for drugs, it's 30 years and then they rat kind of.
Right.
And he's going down because he has drugs.
Okay.
And he's currently on drugs and he's in traffic. It's like a Thanksgiving Day dinner he has to get home to his family for. And there's a helicopter just over him. And since he's high, he just thinks that it's for him. So he's just like weaving hard through traffic. And it's just like, I'm like, and then you have the whole third act of like the trial. And I'm like, all right.
Sure. Okay.
Pacing. If you have good pacing, you should never have a bad second act. But it's like, I always struggle with where to put like what scene. Like that's what I think makes, if you know exactly what points to hit at what, and I'm sure good writers have it down to a science, or it's just second nature to them. But they're like, we naturally cut from this arc, like this storyline to this storyline. I think a big issue I had is when you have like you're supposed to have 3 storylines, like an A, a B, and a C, ranked on relevance to the story.
Right.
And I would always find myself really focusing on the A storyline in the second act. And I'm like, all right, well, now I've just wasted 30 pages not talking about the B or C story at all.
Right.
And now I'm going to have to try to wrap those both up and tie it back to the A story by the end of the third act. So now the third act's rushed because the second act dragged out on one storyline.
Gotcha.
So I think just having the connectedness.
I see.
Yeah. You got to have
the pacing.
Yeah. You got to have the fluff.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. I imagine it'd be easier for like a 20 to 30 minute episode.
Oh, so much easier.
Right? Like with a cartoon, you know, you've got Rick and Morty, let's say.
Yeah.
You've got Rick and Morty as the A. They're almost always the A.
Right.
And then you've got some combination of Summer and the mom, or Summer by herself or whatever as the B, and then you got Jerry as the C or whatever. And flip those B and C, but every one of those episodes has the exact same pacing to it. And it's very formulaic in that, like, from minute 1 to minute 3, all 3 storylines are together.
Right.
And then from minute 3 to minute 7, it's A. 7 to 14 is B.
Right.
14 to 17 is C. And then it just like keeps flipping as it goes. And every episode's the exact same. I feel like, how hard is it to build that formula? Because you watch it, you're like, oh yeah, it's just a formula, but it's like a joke. You're like, oh yeah, it's just rule of 3s. But then you have to do it for 10 years to actually figure out how this shit works.
Exactly. Yeah. I kind of chalk it up to, like, you know, my sophomore year of college. I'm like, I've been writing movies for a year. I'm not that good. Like, I've been doing comedy for a year. I'm not that good. Stuff like that. And it's like, have you seen Solar Opposites?
Yeah.
That's like another great one where it's like the wall colony.
Yes.
Like the way they tie the wall.
That was the only part of that show I liked.
I'm like, honestly, make this a spinoff and I'll watch this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, I want the whole, the wall is essentially Silo.
Okay.
It's very close to the same thing, minus the aliens staring at
Solar
them.
Opposites, not Prestige. The Wall, Prestige TV. No, yeah, I think that it's just like the creativity, and the fact that, good writers have it down to a science. Like, people who make shows like that, I think, like the web series I'm on, it's 15-minute episodes, and that poses a whole new challenge where it's like,
okay,
now you have to fit all of this.
You have no room
in this. Yeah, so you can't waste a line, pretty much. Or like every scene needs to have a purpose, and I think it's making me, I'm like, okay, I'm finally in my wheelhouse, because now I'm like, now I don't have 30 pages to fill in a second act that I don't really know what to do, or 15 pages to fill in a second act that I'm not really sure what to do with. Now I have 5, and I'm hitting ABC, and then we'll tie it all in a bow, and that helped a lot. I think that definitely like helped kind of hone it, and now I'm like working on making longer stuff. Like, I'm working on like a 30-minute and an hour Like I have a 30-minute comedy, which isn't that great. I'm in like a writer's room, and I'll just put draft, and it's with friends, and it's nice to have friends read your stuff, but then you want them to like, I'll literally post it, and I'll just in the subject of the email I'll say hurt my feelings, and like rip it apart, rip it apart, question everything, and then I have like an hour long that I do the whole like, this is going to be a really good season 4. I just got to get there. I'm building to season 4 pretty much, and that the amount of space on my laptop that is taking up is absurd. I'm like, who am I going to cast in this? I'm like, I should write the 3rd episode.
Yeah, right.
Who's going to be the lead, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. I feel that. That's how I feel with tattoos. It's like, I want to get a tattoo, but I think of one piece of the tattoo, like the first one, and then the second one comes to mind immediately, and then the third, and then the fourth, and then by the time it's been a week and I'm done thinking about it, I have an entire sleeve in my mind, and I'm like, that would cost tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah. I'm not doing this, and then I just lose interest for like 6 months, and then it repeats again. But it's the same, like, oh shit, got ahead of myself again.
Yep. Yeah. I've been thinking about tattoos. I'm like, I'm not sure I want the pain. Like I have like literally that's a line, and I was like, it was like 40 minutes, and I was like, I'm good. Or 40 seconds. 40 seconds. Yeah. I was like, I'm good. Like, get me off this mat. You know.
That's what your next TV show could be about.
Yeah.
Just real quick, 40 seconds. just a short.
I think you should leave, but even shorter.
Yeah, exactly. Has like TikTok and Reels and the sort of like minutification of sketches kind of changed how people look at writing longer stuff too, or is it considered like a very different thing?
So I was having a conversation. I'm gonna kind of answer your question and kind of not.
Yeah,
it affects me for sure. I'm like, I don't know if I can strap in for this. Like I know people who will put a TV show on and then watch TikToks with the TV show on in the background. I'm like,
oh yeah,
like what? How overstimulated? How afraid of your own thoughts are you?
I will do that if I'm watching like baseball.
Okay, that
or
doesn't
hockey,
count. That doesn't count.
Like, I don't really care about it. But
if you're
I'm
watching something,
if someone starts screaming, I'll look up.
Yeah.
You know.
But I was having a conversation with someone who's in the streaming space, and we were talking about the writers' strike, and it's like, it's scary because you hope the guild wins, and scabbing is wrong. You don't scab for work or anything like that. It's a good way to never network correctly. Like, don't break into the industry scabbing on a show when people are literally not making money to help you if you get there.
Right.
But the number of creators on these platforms, like, you think they'd say no if they got offered something for like Netflix? No. Or exactly. Like there's so many really, really good people who do sketches just in New York. There's like, you could fund shows and stuff like that. I think it's really cool because I think it's opening up where people put content. Like I'm sure like if stuff doesn't get picked up, throw it on YouTube, throw it on Vimeo, and kind of fund from there, you know?
Yeah.
I think people have started to take kind of content creation into like their own hands more, which is really cool because then you have no one telling you what you can and can't do or say.
Yep.
Riskier for sure.
Yeah.
But then you also have total freedom of where it goes, and like Andrew Schultz, like most recent special. Did you hear the whole thing that happened with that?
Something about him like doing a GoFundMe so he could afford it.
Yeah.
And then he had money. But okay.
So like he sold it to Netflix, and then Netflix was like, we hate this bit, we're taking it out.
Okay.
And he bought it back from them and then just put it up for a subscription and then made like 10x what Netflix paid him.
Okay.
Originally. It's like, he's like, it's mine. I'm not gonna let you change what I said. I'm proud of what I said.
Right.
And he's just, I'll just do it, you know? And Andrew Schultz is like, half the stuff I like, half the stuff is like, all right, we don't need to go.
So we don't need to,
But yeah,
it is. I guess the other side of that is now I feel like studios do not take a chance on anybody unless you have already proven that you have a following.
I think that's very true.
So if you look at like Mark Norman, he's got a Netflix special coming out. I think Mark is great. I think he's super funny. He deserves it. He had to put out 2 YouTube specials that each got like 3 to 4 million views before Netflix was like, all right, fine, you can come on Netflix and do it. And so what that does is it hurts the people that have no money.
Right.
Because Mark Norton, to get those views, he had to work. He had to have a bunch of connections to get the camera guys. He had to spend a ton of money. He had to edit it. He had to do all that work by himself. And he's lucky that he had a lot of capital to do that with.
Yep.
But, you know, who is taking a chance on some kid who like wrote a pilot but doesn't have the money to shoot it or the connections to shoot it?
Yeah. Like,
is it better for us that there's now like a minor league content creation that we have, or is it worse? I don't know.
I kind of like it. I know that like the first season of this web series that I'm on, we did like a GoFundMe, and the creator, like there's 5 producers on it. They all put, you know, X amount of money in. We got, again, connections. We have someone who has a really, really good eye for shooting and an even better camera. So we're like, all right, we get a 4K camera. That's amazing. We got like, I was essentially a production assistant. Like I'm a writer. I'm like, I'm making lunch today. Like,
yeah, right.
So it's just like a real
small
team
mentality. Yeah.
And it, I mean, yeah, it's put almost everyone on the show into credit card debt, and it would be considered small budget. Like
yeah, right.
Yeah. So it's like that's
no wonder you can't pay for Hulu without
yeah, exactly.
It's all coming together.
All right. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So if you talk about, I know we came in talking about prestige, but I have 2 categories I'd like you to give top 3s to, and then we can just wrap this up.
Yeah.
I'm the host now.
Sure. Great.
And then we could just
last 5 minutes. Nate's the host.
We can just debate.
Great.
I'm the captain now.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
We just debate who has the better top 3. All right.
Okay.
So I want you to give the 3 feel good, kind of like, all right, background noise shows, and then the 3 where you would you would go to bat for if someone's like, this isn't good TV.
Okay. Background noise TV shows. I'm probably going Parks and Rec. Oh man. This is tough because I do not watch background noise TV.
That's totally
My
fine.
background noise TV is sports.
Okay,
that's what I put. I will
right.
put on any sport. Parks and Rec is the only one where I'm like even consider just throwing it on.
Is
But
other stuff you just like
then-
you don't even like consider like even good enough to just tune into even in the background?
No, no.
that's fair.
Maybe you know what? Let's go South Park.
All right.
And like Family Guy was that
Yeah.
for a while.
I'm a big
yeah.
Simpsons. I'll sleep.
Sure.
I fall asleep to the Simpsons, and Matt Groening is probably like, "Fuck you for that." But
Yeah,
I'll fall asleep to the Simpsons.
He's happy to have the views.
Yes.
Best 3 shows that I would fight people over.
Yeah.
And I have.
All right.
And I will. In order of how much I like them, Game of Thrones 1, Fleabag 2,
Okay.
and Chernobyl 3.
All right. Okay. Do you like all of Game of Thrones or just because people hate the last season?
Yeah, people hate the last season. I think the last season could have been better.
Yeah.
With small tweaks. I'm not going to sit here and say it was great.
Like changing the king from someone who didn't appear in season 7 at all.
Well, that's So the other thing with Game of Thrones is I read the book.
Okay.
Or I read all of the books so far that they're out. And it does, I am very confident because they said that the end with, spoiler for Game of Thrones, but if you haven't watched it, it's been 3 years. So skip forward a little bit.
Yeah.
The end with Bran becoming the king.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be in the books. That's how that was supposed to go.
Okay.
The issue was the pacing, which is what you were talking about. Because the showrunners of Game of Thrones got offered the new Star Wars movie.
Right, and they took that. So
and so they took that. So they're like, because HBO was like, do you need another season? We'll do another season. We're happy to do another season. You telling me we're going to get more seasons? Yeah, let's do it. And they were like, nope, we're done. We're wrapping it up. In the books, I think it would be paced a lot better in terms of being able to see why Bran should be the king, him building up support for being the king, like being able to see the entire past and future should make a pretty good fucking king.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Yes.
it's not my thing with the last season of Game of Thrones is that I wanted to see really high CGI dragons blow shit up. I wanted a lot of fights. I wanted it to look fucking cool, and I wanted an end to the story. And I got all of those things.
Okay.
Could it have been better? 100%. did it ruin the rest of the series? No. I watched like 70 hours of fantastic TV. You're telling me 3 hours of that totally ruins it? Go fuck yourself.
I can agree with that. Can
That's
I tell you my one issue about Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
My only issue with Game of Thrones is they made Cersei too good a villain. Where I'm like, every time she was on scene, I'm like, how much longer do we have to wait until she gets what's coming to her? Like I'm like,
long time.
Yes, and it doesn't even happen well. I was like, I want someone to get her.
No, that's the Game of Thrones. That's why it's so good.
Yeah.
Is that nobody ever dies how you think they're gonna die.
I think that was so good. Like making Ned Stark the like almost a main character. I'm like, all right, he'll be around. I'm like, oh wait, no, he won't.
That's how the books were.
I was how's he gonna get out of this one?
Right. No, that was the you think. Like, well, you think like Lord of the Rings when you're watching it the first time you're reading it. It's like, oh yeah, no, Frodo is gonna win. There's no doubt that Frodo was gonna win.
Yeah.
But then Game of Thrones happens, they kill Ned, and you're like, oh, this is a very different show.
Speaking about pacing, man, I tried to watch the Lord of the Rings recently.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, first movie, this is great, and then I'm like, there's only
first one's tough.
I'm like, there's only 10 minutes left. He still isn't at Mordor. I was like, I was like, wait, so halfway through the movie, he knew he needed to get there, and at the end of the movie, he's getting there. I'm like, all right, this is not.
Lord of the Rings is a little slow.
Yeah.
But, so okay, you asked me my top 3 for both. What are yours?
Okay.
Or what was the follow up?
Okay. Well, I'll throw mine in. I just wanted to see what yours were.
Oh,
I wanted
okay.
to see where you. I'll go for casual. The Simpsons for me is just it's so easy to watch. I'm a big. We're switching it up. We're going unwritten. I like The Challenge.
Okay.
I'm a big challenge guy.
That's my equivalent of sports.
Yes. Okay.
It's just on.
There's a channel on like Tubi or something where like you can. It's just nonstop challenge seasons. It's 24 hours challenge. So I'll just throw that on if I'm feeling like it.
Great.
And Parks and Rec is one of the best sitcoms of all time. I'll totally agree with that. And
anything
then,
Michael Schur is amazing.
You know, people will debate Office, Parks and Rec. I'm like, they both can be good. Like, I don't think we need to have a king, but
yeah, true.
But there is one.
There
wink,
is,
wink, wink, wink.
I tend to go towards Parks and Rec.
Yeah,
but
and then I'll go Game of Thrones. Definitely is up there for me.
All right.
The Sopranos is almost becoming a comfort show just because I've seen it so many times. But it's one of my favorite like prestige shows of all time.
Sure.
I have like the books. I have posters.
Wow.
Like I have fully. I'm like, oh,
Tony Soprano watches you fuck while you're.
Yeah.
he's up on your
exactly.
bed.
I literally have been at like thrift stores before, and I'm buying shirts, and my girlfriend's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Tony would wear this." Like, I for Christmas I was like, "Buy me shit they would wear in the 2000s North Jersey if you were
Gen
connected."
Z doesn't give a fuck.
No, absolutely not. Oh man, and I mean, geez, I think I was too young when I saw Breaking Bad to appreciate it. I'd probably have to watch it again to like put it there. So I would say I would still put it there, and like honorable mention would definitely be The Wire. I watched that more recently, so whichever one I watch more recently will be third for me. I've watched The Wire more recently than Breaking Bad, but I think The Wire is phenomenal. Okay, like, talk about having a like that's a show that's based on the world, not the characters, because literally every season is different and it's amazing.
They break what you said, which was like they're all Baltimore,
right?
But they knew Baltimore.
Yeah.
It was they could get intricate with Baltimore. It wasn't like we're in Baltimore and like, oh man, I don't know. I hope everything happens here.
Yeah.
Like they knew what they were doing. Those, I mean, that's a good list, and all 3 of those are in my top 10.
Yeah.
At that point, at least where I've landed on these sorts of things is like if you're gonna have one of those outside of your top 10, if you're gonna say it wasn't that good, that's where I'm like, well, okay, you're probably inaccurate. If you want to put The Wire above Sopranos or Breaking Bad or Mad Men's up there for me too.
Okay, that's that's on the list.
I'd put Sopranos 4 and then Mad Men 5. But honestly, it depends on the day. They might be tied for 4th for me.
Yeah.
So.
Can I pose one more question before we wrap up? All right, similar. I do a lot of these kind of games with people. I just throw.
Okay.
If you could have like a 4 top at a dinner with 3 people from fictional worlds.
Okay.
So it's you. You're the head of the table, and there's 3 other. We can go tit for tat, so you can give a little bit of thought here. I know one off the top of my head.
Okay.
It would probably be Jon Snow. I would bring Jon Snow.
Jon Snow. Okay. I feel like he'd be really boring at a dinner. Not a lot going on there.
Okay, actually, can I
not
change?
a lot of personality.
Okay, wait. Can I change my answer very quickly?
Yeah,
Tyrion. I would take Tyrion.
Tyrion would be good.
Yeah.
That's a very good one, actually. Oh man, shit. I might need to take Tyrion. Might be one of mine.
Okay.
See, that's kind of I guess the thing that makes really good TV is that the characters are so flawed.
Right.
Like I'm thinking of like
you're
Joel,
definitely like
Joel from The Last of Us. Like great character, probably really boring to talk to.
Also, just you're for sure gonna have to pick up the bill. None of those guys, none of them are doing that.
Yeah, I was like maybe. Fucking Roger from Mad Men.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that'd be fun with Tyrion. And then let's go one more. Ooh, damn, this could be tough. Let's see. Out of those, see, I don't want to go the main character from Fleabag because she's sucks. Like she's great. It's a great character.
Yeah.
I love watching the show, but god damn it, would she be annoying? Oh man, do you have another one?
I had one, and then you brought up Fleabag, and I'm like, she would be tough.
Did you?
So my brain went there immediately.
Yeah. I guess Tony Soprano would be pretty fun.
I'm taking not Tony. I'm taking Paulie Walnuts.
Oh sure.
Yeah, I think he'd be amazing.
Yeah. That'd be good.
And then I'm trying to think of someone who would be like a nice little wild card. Can you just imagine Gary Gergich at that table?
No.
I think that'd be a fun time. You know he's picking up the bill.
Yeah, right. Oh man, can I take the nuclear reactor from Chernobyl?
Okay, great.
That's the character I want.
Nice.
All right, this was a ton of fun. Where can people find you?
Pretty much home club is Three Monkeys. I'm there a lot of time. Catch me sometimes at Broadway, sometimes at Greenwich Village, sometimes at the McDougal Pair. We'll see what happens with Midtown. Yeah. And then other than that, check out Hope Deferred. It's the web series I'm coming out with.
When's that out?
Imminent. We got pushed back because of music, but those are resolved. Like, I don't know how quickly you turn these episodes around, but it's on YouTube. Hope Deferred. I think it's 2 Fs. I've misspelled it every time I've searched for it. And other than that, created by Reese Washington. Amazing job.
Okay.
It's about 6 broke creatives in New York. It's
great.
Trust
you know a lot
trust
about.
me, the writers know what they're talking about.
They know what they're talking about.
Check that out if you can. But other than that, I'm around the city. Come to a show. Ope from time to time. Corey show.
Done it before. You did a great job. Yeah. Follow me at Corey T Comedy on all social media. And if you're in New York, come to Ope, a comedy show every single week at Ferns in the East Village. If you enjoyed this episode and you're coming to Ope and you want to see Nate on the show, Instagram message me. We'll get him on the show that you're coming to.
Great.
Let's do this again soon.
Absolutely.